Welcome to Insightly. I'm Alyssa McGinn.
And I'm Jordan Walker. We're your hosts on a mission to empower executives and business leaders with the knowledge they need to turn data into a driving force for innovation. Join us every episode as we share real-world case studies and provide practical tips to unlock the full potential of your business through data and analytics.
So if you're ready to transform your relationship with data, hit that subscribe button, because in the world of business, insight is power.
Well, hi, Alyssa. Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Yeah. If you are joining us for the first time on Insightly, Alyssa and I get together and we just have a lot of data nerdy conversations that we would typically have in an office by ourselves. And we decided one day that we should share this with everyone else if they're interested. So we kind of just talk about all things data and what interests us, what trends are happening, and like especially what we see, working with our clients in data capacities. In today's short episode, though, we're going to focus on a role within data and talk a little bit about the evolving role of a chief data officer. So I recently read an article in, I think it was Wall Street Journal, and it was talking about this evolving state of a chief data officer. Typically speaking, chief data officers only tend to exist in large enterprise organizations. I think the statistic that was reported is 4 out of 5 large companies tend to have this role. So you're thinking large companies that probably have like multiple departments, multiple divisions, and have a lot of customer data.
Yeah.
And this could be any industry.
And when they say large, I'm thinking like large.
I'm thinking
like
enterprise level. I have noticed, at least just in my own client portfolio, I have noticed more of a shift in seeing more mid-sized organizations adopt this role.
Okay.
And it's in industries where a lot of customer and financial data is likely stored.
Yeah.
So, which is really where the evolution of this role is kind of centered, where the chief data officer historically has been focused on data security and data compliance.
Yeah.
Those have been typically the only major responsibilities of that role if a company hasn't turned them into a unicorn to do other things.
Typically, I feel like they're rolling CTO, CIO, CISO, CDO all into one role that oversees all of that.
And that
which
is,
maybe we'll get into that, but that's just a lot for one role.
All of those are different levels of expertise. And I think we talked about this a little bit in one of our previous episodes where we were talking about like data infrastructure and moving things to the cloud so that it was more accessible. Like if you are in charge of data security and compliance and we've talked data privacy on one of these episodes too, like that is an evolving area within itself that I don't know how you can appropriately have a CDO, CTO, CIO, at least those 3 in one person. That's...
And so I have a lot of friends that are fractional CFOs or like kind of in a CFO role, and they talk about how they're not doing the bookkeeping. They're not in the nitty gritty of, reconciling the books or preparing taxes. They're really performing a strategic function.
Yes.
Which is guiding the company financially and making, really guiding the strategy. And I think the same has to be true with this.
Yes. So the evolving role now, rather than it just being a chief data officer, it's now weaving in analytics. So the expectation is now turning more to a chief data and analytics officer, where there are 4 key areas of responsibility that live in that strategic place that you were just mentioning. One is data governance and ethics. So of course that has to be a part of it. And these CDAOs are responsible for not only how is the data stored, but how are we ethically using it to...
Especially customer data.
Exactly. How are we ethically using it, especially because of like data privacy and all of these things. And you also have to be concerned about like hacking, all of that. Data-driven decision-making. So we were just having an episode about this where we talked about innovation and product offering. If you have this role on staff, this person should be sitting with the CEO, CFO, CTO, CMO, all of the C's, all of them. Just bring them all into a room, right? this person should be helping take, these are the business initiatives. Here is how we can use data to help us make great decisions. Here's what I can bring to the table with my team. In some cases, data monetization is now a key responsibility. We talked a little bit about Amazon in our last episode. Amazon definitely has monetization opportunities. Google has monetization opportunities. A lot of companies actually do, but that goes back into the ethics component of it.
So this is something really interesting. I think data monetization has been historically understood as let us gather our data to then sell externally. But there's some different ideas and avenues of how data can be monetized now, even as an internal asset. And so companies, especially that are looking to buy and sell, data is becoming something that's a balance sheet asset.
Yeah.
And something that can be utilized internally to grow revenue.
Yes.
That's monetizing data, but that's not something where you're selling it. Like Google or Amazon is selling their data, or
it's like a
bring
tool.
money in some other way. And then when you go to sell or even to acquire, like that's truly an asset. And I think historically, as this is evolving, the data hasn't been seen as an asset. Like people do, due diligence on technology.
Yeah.
But is the data itself truly being seen as an asset? I think monetization is more than just how can we add a revenue stream to sell this to someone else.
A good episode for those listening to tune into that kind of gets into this topic without saying data monetization is the interview that we had with Emily and Leah from Ameritrust Credit Union.
Yeah.
Because their roles on the growth strategies team is to basically harness the power of data to create better member experiences, grow, member profitability, all of those kind of things.
So arguably they're monetizing.
They are monetizing data.
We should do a whole episode on data monetization.
That's a good idea. The fourth big area, and this is where analytics definitely starts to come in, is the fourth big responsibility that the CDAOs are now having to take charge on is data science and artificial intelligence. So we hit on this a little bit in our last innovation conversation about a lot of companies want to get into artificial intelligence and really figure out how do we harness this to help us within our organization. But you have to have a foundation and you have to have that data stored in the right ways to be able to utilize it for artificial intelligence. And that is now an expectation of the CDO. So again, when we're thinking about those unicorns of CDO, CIO, CTO, and now really understanding these four big responsibilities. Like this is a validation for why you need one person or even like a contracted individual to help with that piece because it's a lot.
It's a lot. And even for a company that has, I'd say like moderate amount of data, like even if you're not an enterprise that has gobs and gobs of data, there's still so much that can be done with this. A client of ours is very much considered mid-market, but they have 8,000 customers.
Yeah.
There's so much customer data, so much internal operational data, and a company of that size could for sure handle, a CDO type role or even like a fractional CDO because there's a lot of data to be harnessed and handled and strategized around.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. In these episodes, we always try to acknowledge that there are challenges that exist. One of the biggest challenges of having a dedicated CDO on staff is expense.
Yeah.
These are highly trained experts, like very curious people who are constantly learning and cannot get complacent because of the responsibilities that they have.
Low supply, also high demand for that skill set.
Yeah. So if you are a young person looking for a career path, maybe consider data.
A very lucrative career path.
So yeah, the challenge is the expense of it, but you just hit on a good point that there are fractional opportunities. Or if you are in that stage where, maybe you're not yet a mid-size, like maybe you're inching there, like you're gonna get there, you're kind of on that cusp. Look for individuals in your market that you can, like as a consultant, bring in and just start to help you identify, like, okay, what does my foundation look like now? What are the opportunities? Build out a roadmap. It doesn't mean that you have to start necessarily like working your way to a CDO, but if you can start thinking about what that would mean for your business and kind of taking stock with what you've got to work with now, when your business is ready for it.
Yeah.
Or when you're ready to like pull in a more dedicated, consistent person.
Yeah.
Then you have a foundation to work with.
Yeah. Like just data consulting, someone that can help you audit, understand what you have, where you can go. I mean, because you're right. Like even bringing in a fractional CDO is still a big, step, and people feel like they have to be at a certain level to do that. But I will say, I feel like it's going to be the way of the future.
Yeah.
For sure.
One point that I want to make before we break this short episode is I have a note here about what are the benefits of the CDO role specifically to analytics. And one of the things that I really loved about the Wall Street Journal article that I read is that CDAOs know how technology and people work together. And I think that is something that is so important about this role is it's not just the responsibilities over these big, ever-changing, evolving areas in data and analytics, but these are individuals who are used to collaborating and figuring out how do we integrate technology appropriately for the people. And so that it doesn't cause additional like tension or friction, or how do we roll it out appropriately so that it is utilized appropriately. And I loved that because what that ends up doing is it essentially like integrates. This role helps integrate the entire value chain within an organization.
Which ultimately creates culture. Like we talked a lot about data culture. And I think that's something that could be even like a fifth point on a role. Like 4 areas. It's like a fifth area is like data culture. And I will say like, I think having someone that's technically capable and strategically minded and knows people, that's hard.
That's a triple threat.
Yeah.
And if you are in one of these roles, we want to talk to you.
Yes,
like, I would love to live in your brain for one of these, like for an interview.
Yes.
And just see like, how did you get into it? What are the things that interest you? And how have you helped develop a data culture? Because that is a key component for literally everything that we're talking about. If anyone is listening and they are getting, these really great ideas of what they can do for their companies, it has to start with developing a data culture in order for it to work well.
At least in parallel with your effort, your technical efforts.
Yeah.
Has to be like the people have to understand what's happening. So please, if you're listening to this and you know anyone that's in a CDO role, a CDAO role, if they're very progressive,
please
we'd love to
us.
have them on as an interview.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that, we're going to leave that ask open to the universe. We're going to manifest it. And if you are that person, email us at hello@insightlypodcast.com. Or if you have a topic that you'd like us to cover in another short episode, you can also drop us a line at hello@insightlypodcast.com.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks.